people get, I think, turned off in the culture in the world by the idea that we say things like masculinity is under attack. But it's not that we're taking away from the plight of females.
No.
In reality, if we are bad men, then we treat women poorly. And then women are treated poorly.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, super pumped to be here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is Honest to God, a production of The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. We got a great episode today.
Yeah, we sure do. I feel like this episode is just going to bring out the man in all of us. You
I like
know
that.
what I mean?
I feel good about this episode. I got to hang out in the chapel a little bit beforehand, and you came in late.
I did.
You got here like
traffic
30 seconds ago.
was rough here in Atlanta.
But it's a good sign. It's all like the rain on your wedding day kind of thing. If a bunch of stuff screws up around it, the thing itself is going to be really good.
Exactly.
So I'm excited, and we got all vets in the house. We got Nick back. We got Drew back. We got Pierce back. We got Mario back. It's like an all-star cast.
Yeah, it is. It will be a good show, I'm certain.
Yeah. I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about raising Catholic boys into Catholic men today, which I'm really excited about. And I actually need a whole bunch of pointers on. So I don't know. How many of you guys actually have boys?
I do.
Me too. Well, I got one.
I have 3.
You got 2.
I have 3.
Oh, you got 3. That's
3.
right. You got 3.
Yeah.
You got 3. That's right. One very small one.
Yes.
And then they get progressively bigger from there.
That's right.
Yeah. I've got one boy and then 4 girls. He was first, and then the ladies keep on keeping on.
I keep asking, how do I get girls? And nobody can tell me. Just keep
well,
trying.
next time you have a girl, I have a boy. We trade them early enough. I think we'll just get over it.
You know, I've tried that before. Let's see. You
Have
guys
you?
heard
You've
it here.
tried
It's
that
on air. Yeah,
You tried
actually, a
swapping
mutual
your
friend of
infant?
ours. It was Adrian from school. I said,
Great.
hey, let's trade. He goes, yeah, let's do it. And then he wouldn't go for it.
Oh, man. Yeah, quitter. All right, guys. So we're going to get started here. Everybody owes us one fun fact. But first, we're going to open in prayer. Does anybody want to volunteer?
It would be my pleasure.
Okay, good. You
This
got it, Drew.
happens.
We're ready when you are.
All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you once again here to discuss how to live life according to your will as men, as follow the example of your Son, Jesus Christ. Ask Mary in her intercession, make this a good podcast episode, and to bring enlightenment to all of us. Pray, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
We're at a grade prayers, which I don't anymore.
That's
obviously.
right. We don't grade prayers. Yeah.
I've done better.
88. Yeah.
I'll take
87.
an
88.
88.
It's fine.
That
It
is
was
the
good. It was good. It was good.
non-graded prayer.
Right. I'm not giving it that.
It's
but
just an
It's a
unrelated
pretend number.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you, Drew. Seriously, that's awesome. Let's jump right in with fun facts. Starting with Nick. You ready?
Ooh.
And it can't be about that amazing sweater that you're wearing right now.
This was a gift from my wife that I ruined.
If you're listening on the radio, it's worth going on the YouTube and checking out that sweater.
It is a traditional wool sweater. And in my ignorant masculinity, I completely ignored the dry clean only tag.
Good. That's lame. Don't let that tag tell you what to do.
Dried, and now it is now it's a work sweater.
I think it looks
because
super cool.
It's a medium, but it keeps me warm.
Yeah. Sorry, that doesn't count as your fun fact, though.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Fun fact: I am in the midst of building a treehouse / zip line project for my kids. It's kind of a quasi Christmas present.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
It's fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like it. I like it a lot. What about you, Drew? You got anything?
Favorite color is purple. That's my fun fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's good.
That's fine. Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
I just got back from the Camino a few months ago, my first pilgrimage. Yeah.
So
it was-
we talked before you went, and
I
now
think
you
we
went?
talked maybe right after I got
Oh, we
back.
got
Yeah,
right
yeah,
at that was it. Yeah, you had just come back. Okay.
So that was cool. We did like 90 miles.
Yeah.
And the little Spanish ladies were way more athletic than I ever could be. They seemed to not be like concerned at all, and I thought I was going to die on day 2.
That's
So
beautiful.
It was fun.
Did you
Cool.
did you do it in shoes or sandals?
We did it, and I bought the best hiking shoes I could find because I knew it was going to be a struggle, but it still didn't help. I was still
Yeah.
struggling. Yeah.
No, I feel like
That's awesome. All right, Mario, what you got?
I actually just got back from the Seek 25
Oh,
conference
no
in Salt Lake
way.
City. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it was just mind blowing, and then yeah, I actually got. I'm gonna say it. I got offered so many things, so many blessings that I had no idea I was not planning for. I got offered a job with the
Great.
Chesterton Academy Network. If anybody's familiar
I'm
with
super
it.
familiar.
Yeah,
Big fans.
Yeah,
Big fans of
like,
Chesterton Academy.
And then I got dinner with Jason Everett.
You did have dinner with Jason?
I did
Everett?
have dinner with
That's
Jason Everett. It
cool.
was Chipotle. It was very good. It was it was a
High class.
I'm gonna say it. It was probably the best thing because I had not had a philosophical conversation with somebody in over 2 years.
Right.
And it was like just six people that won, him, and we were just chatting it up. Like you can just see how smart, how theologically wired his brain is.
Oh,
It's
you
like-
won it. Was it like a raffle thing or what?
Yeah, it was a raffle thing. I literally just after I talk, I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna sign up and pass it. I didn't get it last year, but I'll just see what happens. And like, dude is like 2 days later. What?
That's cool. That's really cool.
It was fun.
How was his Chipotle order?
Oh, very good.
Okay.
Is he kind of short? I feel like he's kind of short.
He's shorter than me. I think he's like 5'6", 5'7".
I mean, I'm not knocking it. I mean,
Yeah.
go for it. I just wanted to know that. I met him in person once, but he was sitting down.
Yeah.
It's like at a table, so I couldn't tell.
Did he order guacamole or no guacamole?
Oh, there was guac.
Okay.
There was guac and queso.
That's almost as exciting as winning the dinner with Jason Everett is the guac. Was
That's
it,
right, yeah.
Was it free? The meal was free?
They literally said, order what you want.
Even the guac?
I mean, I think the
Was
guac came
paid for?
included. Somebody
Wow.
ordered
Whoa.
guac.
That's a big deal.
Usually it's a little extra.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I hear. You said you have one, Julian. What's your fun fact?
Yeah, I do. I was watching a show called Pints with Aquinas the other day, and it
Pints
turns out
with Aquinas?
Yes, Pints
Oh,
with
what is
Aquinas, and I love his John Henry's reaction because John Henry was on the show, and we'll post it down below in the show notes. This particular one, you were talking to Matt about your time at Costco and Walmart, and how at Walmart you'll skip by and not show your receipt.
I did that like 2 weeks ago.
At Walmart,
Yeah.
At Walmart's fine. At Costco, this is a point of fraternal correction to you, John
Okay.
Henry.
All right, I'm ready.
At Costco, you sign a contract to be a member there. And so by doing that, you're actually violating the Catholic faith in that we are supposed to honor our contracts because you sign a contract with Costco that you will abide by their terms and conditions.
Okay. So, first of all,
Which, as a membership,
No way.
you have that duty.
all right. So, first of all, you're wrong. Second of all, I would view the same way as if I lived, I don't know, just a random analogy. If I were a 20-year-old in Germany in 1939 and I signed up for the armed services, and then when I'm there, I'm told I have to do something ridiculous and immoral, and I refuse to do it. That's how I view. And I'm not being hyperbolic. 100%. It's the exact same kind of a violation. All right, maybe a little bit, but no, they can't. I own the stuff in my cart. I own the things in my cart. They can't look at things that I own. I can't go to Pierce's house and demand to look inside Pierce's house in case he might have stole something when I put it in my cart and I pay for it. Now it's mine. I own it. They can't see it.
Yeah, but there's
So
no
there.
such a thing as a search warrant. I mean,
Fine. If the overweight woman guarding the door at Costco has a warrant, I'll let her look at my receipt.
But until then, no Costco Gestapo is going to bother you.
I'm I'm going to use Costco Gestapo for the rest of my life. Thank
Trademark
you for
pending.
that,
New band
Jim.
New band-aid.
That's really
We're gonna
good.
play next week in the Masters.
No, I do hear what you're saying, right?
Yeah. It's a contract that you have created as a membership because you're not forced to go there.
But I mean, are secular contracts morally binding?
We could go on.
You can't
but
say
we
it all.
can definitely go.
Let's dig into this because we're talking about raising men, and I actually had a debate with a friend of mine who was taking a flight and he wanted to go to New York, but he found that if he took a connection in New York to Boston, that it was cheaper, and he would just hop off. I think they call it skip tracing or skip lagging. And I went on and on to him about that. You're violating a contract because it says right in there that's not allowed. And even though it was cheaper, it was the same flight. It was the flight he would have taken to get there. And it turned out that they made him at the gate. He had to check his luggage because the plane was too full. So he ended up having to go to Boston anyway. And the $20 that he tried to save, it cost him more to get back to New York. The other part of that was that now there was an extra seat filled on the seat to Boston, and he may have actually costed another family more money because the airline saw that plane to Boston. And that's a secular contract. We are called to abide by our contracts in the catechism. I don't know the reference, but it's there, I promise.
Counterpoint. I think that's super lame, and I think you should be allowed to do that. So I don't. Once again, we can dig into it or theologically or whatever. You're probably right, but it seems too lame for me.
Wouldn't that fall under the commandment of bearing false witness?
If you're lying to get,
If
you're
you're
saying you're going to.
intentionally purchasing a ticket knowing that you have no intention of taking the second leg.
But would it be? What if I'm just buying a ticket because I really like United Airlines and I'm trying to help them out, and then I don't show up, but I buy a $2,000 ticket to Heathrow Airport in London?
then I think you just wasted your money for really
Well,
Yeah,
Well,
but,
we're supposed to be good stewards
but is
of
it
our money.
immoral?
Yeah.
Well, we're supposed to be good stewards
There's
of our money.
no way.
Especially
They
in
count
this
all your
economy.
groceries at Costco. That's all I have to say.
See,
I just
thank
can't
you.
imagine that. They look at it and they go, "That's too many," and then they cross it out every single time. You know,
Power
I look
trip.
in their eyes.
I'm never rude. I say no thank you, and then I walk, and then they say something to me, and then I just keep walking, and I say no thank you, and I wave, and I go.
I just feel bad, you know. I pity them.
No,
You
I know
can't
it's a
even
tough
have
job.
conversation, you
And these
know?
poor people, it's just like a retirement job for some nice old man who just wants to get out and see people occasionally. And then I'm making his life miserable on some stupid principle that's founded on nothing. I probably shouldn't do it. To be fair, I've maybe been to Costco 2 times in my entire life.
Really?
Yeah.
My boys love Costco. Speaking of boys, I think this episode is
Whoa,
about
what a good segue.
That is
Okay.
nice.
I've been studying. I've been going to my classes.
You've been doing night
at
classes?
Yale. Yep.
For the Yale
Yeah,
School of
the Yale
Segues?
School of Segues.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Nice.
good. Yeah, so let's dig into this a little bit because it's what we're supposed to be talking about today. I think I might have said this at the beginning of the show, or at least off air. I have one boy. He's 12 years old. For the first time in my life, I now have a boy who's reaching like angsty middle schooldom, right? And it's an adventure, right? And not a knock on any of you guys, but all my thoughts on fatherhood come from me talking to guys older than me with grown kids who have really well-formed Catholic sons who are now well-formed Catholic men still in the faith, and me going up and being like, hey man, can I just ask you a whole bunch of questions? Because I'm not very good at this, and you clearly know what you're doing, what's going on. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm less in a position to give advice than I am to take advice at this point. And because, how old's your oldest boy?
11.
Oh, you're in the same boat I am.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you're in the same boat I'm in. I feel like, I don't know, maybe this conversation is going to be more geared towards what was done right in your life or what you wish had been done differently. And I mean, we can talk about some stuff that is working right now. Julian, how old is your oldest?
My
14?
oldest is going to be 14 this year. He's 13, and then we have another son who turns 8 very soon. Like when this airs, he'll be 8.
So we got 11, 12, and 13 right here.
That's right. Yeah,
exciting.
yeah,
See,
we do.
but for my son, and you're probably in the same situation that I'm in, is that I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old also. And so, unfortunately for him, my 11-year-old is kind of like the test dummy.
Right.
And then my 6-year-old, I get to do like version 2 and figure out how that works.
Yeah,
and
I worked out the bugs.
And then,
Yeah.
And then my 2-year-old will get version 3.
Yeah.
So
You say unfortunate. I'm going to push back a tiny bit because you're raising a leader there. So that kind of battle test that he's going through right now, he'll be a better leader, I think, moving forward.
if I don't crash him first.
I get it. I do get it. I'll sort of spitball because I gave a talk not too long ago at St. Peter Chanel to a group of dads, right? And they asked me to come in and talk to all these dads, the vast majority of which are much older than me. And the conversation was about raising Catholic kids, and I said, listen, I'm not qualified to do this. I've never raised them, right? I've never raised them all the way up. I'm raising, right? But I said what I have done, what I have been fortunate enough to do is spend the last 15 years of my life working in Catholic high schools and talking to young men, right? Usually young men. There's some girls that I talk to, but obviously I can't go into the same sort of depth of a conversation with a young woman as I can a young man. And hearing them say things like, man, I'm glad my dad did X, or why the heck did my dad do Y, and all of those things. And so I did spend some time not too long ago just sort of sitting down and sifting through and thinking about it. But I guess I'd like to pose this question to you guys who don't have sons right now. What were some big parenting wins, do you think, from your dads growing up?
I honestly have no idea because I did not grow up with my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, I come from a broken household, but I think it's not so much as having a dad, it's more like having a father figure.
Sure.
Like, I know, unfortunately, like so many dads are just absent from their kids' lives, and that's what the thing they need. But then comes my grandfather. He's like 7 years old right now, and he took the time out of his life. He started with me. I was his first grandson. I was his first grandchild, and he decided, no, I'm gonna make him a leader.
Praise God.
Yeah. And I honestly think so fondly back to that. And as of late, I'm going on 3 years now of working with young boys, especially, Julian, you know this. I work with middle schoolers and anything between 6 and 14 or so.
Sure.
And even occasionally I talk to some high schoolers or some college kids. I have friends who have come to me asking like, hey man, you come from a broken house school. I come from a broken house school. How the heck are you a leader? You're acting like a leader. You're dad bodding, as it's called for some reason. And then these guys are older than me somehow. Or the middle schoolers are just so hectic and crazy. 14-year-olds, I found, are one of the most hectic times for a boy.
So what did your granddad do?
My granddad was just patient. He was not afraid to just tell me I'm flat out wrong. Like he was just he was more the silent. He's introverted a lot, but he's more that silent but very willing and action kind of man. So I remember I look back fondly as like ever since I was 7 years old, he and I took a monthly day trip, out to it's a 3-hour drive down to a Marian shrine and meet with other boys.
Oh, cool.
And then we would just spend the day there. We would just talk. We would just go to our groups and learn about Mary, about how we men can foster our growth and each other through Mary to get to Christ. And that's called the Schoenstatt movement, if any of you are familiar.
What's it called?
The Schoenstatt movement. It's founded in 1914 by
What's that word? Schoenstatt?
Schoenstatt. It's German for a beautiful place.
Cool.
Yeah, it was just, and it really is a beautiful place. And I've stayed in connection with them. I was actually president of the group in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And it was just, but the point of it all is boys need communities. And if they don't have a stable rock, a father figure, especially you guys are doing the right thing and just being present in there. You building a treehouse
That
for
is
your
cool, Nick.
kids.
It's pretty sweet.
How the heck are they going to forget that? That's a core memory that is going to form them forever. It's like, that's something I didn't have. But I had tons of crazy uncles. Sure, crazy uncles are men in your life. But you have to build a strong, tight-knit community with a strong, manly rock foundation. Christ called Peter to be he called you, on this rock I will build my church. That's an example. That's what all men are called to be in the first place. When we say we're going to take care of someone, we are to be a rock and be a firm base foundation.
Well, and I've said multiple times on this show and other places, right, that it's an ontological fact, right, by their very nature of their masculinity, that the father in the household is the spiritual leader.
Exactly.
He might do a terrible job. I see a lot, right, in all the different things that I've been involved with, situations where a mother will try to fill that role, usually from a really good place of either dad is not present or dad is just weak spiritually. He doesn't want to invest. He's not super concerned with the faith. And so mom, wanting to fill this hole, is stepping in, and it's never good. It's never as good. It can be it can help, sure, maybe, but it's never going to take the place of the father. And if you are a dad out there who's listening, and once again, none of these ideas are mine. These are all things that I'm hearing from people who are way better at this and have already done it, right? If you're not the spiritual leader of your household, it doesn't mean that your wife is. It means that your house has a really poor spiritual leader, right? If you're not stepping up and doing that, nobody else can take your place. You are a necessity. And we live in a world, I was talking about this the other day with a coworker of mine, where in, 30, 35 years, we went from the 1960s show Father Knows Best, where the whole show ends with the dad sitting, smoking his pipe and solving the problems of the family, having these sort of family discussions, to Homer Simpson, right, being the sort of sitcom dad of America, this big blubbering buffoon whose wife does everything because he's an idiot. It's terrifying what's happened. What about Drew or Pierce? What are y'all's?
I can relate to what you said about spiritual leaders coming from the mom side and how it's a little bit detrimental. Like my mom was the spiritual leader of our household. My dad was baptized Catholic in Germany, but did nothing with that.
Right.
And didn't even know what I was saying when I was becoming Catholic. I was like, yeah, I'm studying right now to like learn everything. And he's like, I don't even know what the Apostles' Creed is or the Nicene Creed is.
Wow.
So he wasn't too knowledgeable at all. My mom raised me Protestant, and though she tried her best, I inevitably inherited and became the sins of my father. So it wasn't a broken household, but we did have brokenness inside the household.
Sure.
And a lot of infidelity, a lot of patterns that were generational that affected me. And I had to, as I was coming into the faith, I had to learn how to like backwards engineer that and say these are the things that I shouldn't do, not because I was raised right, but because I was raised to see what was wrong.
Sure.
One thing that I would say that was beneficial for my dad being there, not even in a spiritual way, just there, was he was always present. He was a full-time worker, public servant his whole life. And yet, for somehow, with my swimming, with basketball, with baseball, of which he was the coach of baseball up until I graduated, he was never to miss a game. Ever.
Awesome.
It made no sense. Never practice. He was always there. So I did see that like selfless desire to give me everything and to be there for everything, even if it was in the background, which reminded me a lot of St. Joseph. That he was the quiet person in the background, and of all the flaws that he had, and of all the things that I would have liked to have been raised differently with, we did have that connection where I knew that he was always
Heck
there.
yeah. Praise God.
That's a
That's
beautiful
awesome.
thing, for sure.
Well, and one of the things is too, I'm not here to rag on anybody's parents. My parents weren't perfect. I'm not a perfect parent. We all have parent wounds. All of our kids are going to have parent wounds, right? Because unfortunately, we're fallen creatures, right? And there's no magical formula. But it is so interesting to me the differences you can see in dads. Once again, being physically present. It's the presence versus presence thing, right? No matter what you give your kid, right? I forget the quote, but it's we use it all the time in open houses, right? If you want to preserve your family culture, if you want to raise your kids in the faith, spend half as much money and twice as much time, be there physically, and dad, be there physically. Dads, I understand. I go to mass on Sundays with my family. I pray a rosary with my kids every night. I do it every single night. I do it every single Sunday. About 70% of the time, I don't really want to. I'm not really feeling it. I don't like it. But I make myself do it because that's what I ought to do and for the sake of that example. And I fail so many times to be a good example. I think half the curse words my kids learn, they've learned on the way to Mass when we're late and I'm in traffic and I'm angry, right? I'm terrible at this in a lot of ways. What about you, Drew? You've got one of the coolest dads that I
I love
know.
my dad.
I'm a huge
That's
fan.
the best way to preface this. And
I just booked
he's
my flight to
taught-
Cape Town, by the way, which I need to tell your dad about.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. He's just, I just like a social butterfly, you know. He's a really social person. For me, I've always been able to look up to him as someone who cares about people, you know. I also found this theme that I've been seeing of dads being present really interesting. Like literally just a dad being there is the most powerful thing. Not even really saying anything, just that knowledge of there being a figure, you know, around the corner, you know. Not even like to talk to, but just like that he is there in case of emergency. Really peaceful. Love for outdoors too. That's another thing I've definitely inherited from my dad. And good taste in music.
That's right.
That's awesome. You got any dad stories, Nick, before we go a little deeper in some of those?
You know, I'm kind of like Pierce. So my biological father passed when I was about 18 months old. And so my mom remarried to the man that I called my father when I was about 3. And he was raised Catholic, was not a practicing Catholic, but for whatever reason, he was adamant that I attend Catholic school,
Cool.
be baptized, and at least be exposed to the Catholic faith. So I did grow up going to Catholic school. I was baptized, thanks be to God. But my catechism, faith, Catholic education stopped at the schoolhouse. There was no catechism at home. My mom was not of any faith. And so, you know, we hear the word present, right? My father was physically present in the house, but absent as well.
Sure.
And so I think, you know, there's a designation to be made because, like, my dad was very successful in his career, and when he came home from work, it was like, I'm home. I did my duty for the day. Don't bother me. So he's physically present, but not approachable, right?
Well, and what I'm always saying, because you hear that a lot, right, about dads who felt like, and it's more of sort of the baby boomer mentality of I went out and I worked, clearly I love you, now leave me alone and let me drink my scotch and watch my shows, right? I totally understand that temptation. I understand that. I love my kids to death, you know, whatever. I'd die for any one of them in a heartbeat. But, oh my gosh, I swear, it's like a joke. I get home from work, and the second I walk through the door, I'm tired, I want to relax, and I want to spend quality time with the family, I want to play Uno or whatever, and here's the laundry list of so-and-so hit me in the face earlier, and also this bill just overdrew our credit card or whatever, and all these different things are coming. And so I get it, and I struggle a lot of times with the temptation, I think I can say this on air, to pretend like I have to go to the bathroom so I can sit down in the bathroom by myself for 5 minutes and just breathe. And all I want to do is scroll on my phone and spend 2 hours in there reading every news story I can find. I can't do that, right? But I get the temptation that these men have who are called like we all are, right? The sort of the baby boomer generation. But this temptation to say, listen, I provided today, and now I'm home. I feel like everyone is taken care of, and now I need my me time. I don't necessarily want to get down and crawl on the floor with kids. And that is disordered because we still need to be there with our kids. But I just don't want to dismiss that temptation because I get it. I totally get it.
But here's one question: like, you get that feel, and this is more directed to you guys who have your own kids. I don't know if you guys actually have this, where you feel like you're working, but then that temptation of actually feeling that you're not living, you're just surviving. It's like, is that different? Does that become different when you become a dad? Because I know I want to become a dad. I love kids. I love hanging out with kids. I want to have my own kids.
Right.
It's like, but I don't want to start a cycle where every time I go out to provide for them, I become that I'm surviving so that they can live. But it's my duty as a son of God and as a man to actually be able to live along with them, to live and to grow instead of just survive so that they can live. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggle with selfishness for sure, where I have to. I was an only child too. I got very used to just taking care of me and I'm good and whatever. And yeah, I mean that absolutely is a struggle. I think it's almost like a muscle, right? Where you have to, like, I had to remind myself a lot, especially when the kids were little. Like, I am home and there's only so many hours I'm going to get in my life. What's that kind of cliche quote of every time your kid asks you to do something with them, remember that there's going to be a last time they ask you to do that. And so I've had to force myself, right, through some coercion of, like, personally and my wife, some guys would call nagging, but thank God, in hindsight, saying, babe, come on. And now I've gotten to the point where I really enjoy it. Like, I get super excited. My goal when we're done shooting tonight is to get home in time to hang out with my kids for a few minutes, read a story to my oldest girl, and give them a blessing before bedtime. But it's not easy. It's not like this innate. I think women have a better time with that, like, oh, I love you, and I'm just going to love and hug and be with you. And I struggle with that. Like, I did my thing. I did my stuff today. I'm done with my thing.
I think maybe if there's something that I can add is that at least what I picked up in your distinction of living versus surviving is that there's like undertones of I still want to have fun. I still want to enjoy my hobbies and all that kind of stuff. But when you become a father, you become responsible for another soul.
That's more important than yours.
Yeah,
than you. Yeah.
And it will be more important than any hobby that you ever. But I would take a step back, and before you take on the responsibility of a soul through a child, you remember that you become the responsible party for your wife's soul also. And so it's that idea, like my family members told me, like, you're the caboose now, right? Like, you're the last one to be worried about. So everybody else eats, everybody has fun, everybody gets the clothes and the shoes, and that you're the last one. And so the idea of fun and play and hobbies, look, I'm the world's worst about it. It goes out the window.
But once again, I think once you sort of train yourself to do that by force originally, you get to this point where it's really what you desire.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. And you find joy in their joy.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's actually the answer I was actually hoping to hear, because I see a lot of boys that
I want to hear the whole rest of that thought, but I got to cut you off because we got to go to commercial, and we're going to pick up right there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is Honest to God, a production of the Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. We are killing it here. About to get back with Mario and Pierce and Drew and Nick. As always, producer Julian is here.
Over here pushing buttons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shono's Benny may or may not be off to my right. Nobody knows. Can't tell. Scared
Nobody
to look
knows.
directly at him, actually, if I'm being honest.
If you ever want to know, you should sign up to be a contestant a panelist on our show. Send us an email, youngadults@thequestatlanta.com. Or if you just want to watch and learn, subscribe down below. Please leave us a comment and a like. And we're going to continue on with the show.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
You're good at that, producer Julian. Thanks for keeping us.
I do what
Keeping
I
our
can.
brand out there.
Good at it, I do not know, but thank you.
So we're talking about raising Catholic men, right? Raising Catholic boys into Catholic men. I think I cut you off right before we went to break, Mario.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
So I was gonna say, because I remember right before we went to break, you were mentioning how the man becomes the caboose of the family, but eventually over time, even through force, he learns to actually yearn for that, because that's eventually he learns to become more aware of his surroundings, especially when it comes to his children and being the soul of the family itself. And I was gonna say, if I could add on to that, I would say you would be more like the engine that is in the back pushing.
Yeah, backwards train.
Yeah, the backwards train, exactly. And then it's like, you're not just in the back, behind the scenes, being the soul of the family. You're actually pushing them towards Christ. You're pushing them further and further and further along to the point where they start yearning for Christ himself by themselves. And I feel that once a father achieves that, or even a father figure, in my case, you actually start seeing a lot more progress within the boys. Sure, they're still rambunctious, but it clicks some form of curiosity. I don't know if you've seen it in your boys. And it's like, as you keep pushing, even though they're going to resent it a little bit, they're going to see something.
Well, what I always find is tough with boys, and I don't know if you guys can back me up on this, I bet you can, is with my daughters, I feel like my primary responsibility is to affirm their goodness and their dignity, make them know that they are princesses of heaven and daughters of God. It's just to pour love into these girls. And I feel a lot less pressure with the girls than I do with my son, who I'm looking at him and I'm always thinking, you have to be a man one day. You have to be in a position to be the head of the household, right? And the culture is hurt after our boys more than our girls, right? And I'm not saying that it's not an issue with the girls, but I'm saying overall masculinity is what is primarily under assault right now in our culture. And it scares me. The pressure I feel with my son, the way I deal with my son, with discipline, with just building responsibility, all this stuff is always done with this focus on, I got to help mold you to be a man. I've got to help chip you, right, this block of funny shaped marble into something that is solid for the sake of your future spouse, your future children, the church, and primarily your own salvation. And it's a different level of, I don't know, tough, scary, whatever with the boys.
It's tough love.
Yeah, well, to me, I think it's people get, I think, turned off in the culture in the world by the idea that we say things like masculinity is under attack. But it's not that we're taking away from the plight of females.
No.
In reality, if we are bad men, then we treat women poorly, and then women are treated poorly.
Right.
So that's one thing that changed in my life too, like learning everything backwards, having to reconfigure
100%.
what my mind frame was about women, about sexual relations, about everything, and then about what it would mean to be a man for a marriage or be a man for a leadership position as well. So I completely agree. Like we need to make sure that the dads are there, so that they can also take care of their daughters,
Right.
Show them what a man looks like, and also have men that are raised being men, being good men, and biblical men.
I have sorry, what were you going to say, Nick?
Oh no, I was going to agree with Pierce. I was also going to add that I think that we can't. Oftentimes we want to set like an example, right? Where it's like, do what I say, do as I do. Just follow on my heels and I'll show you, right? But if there's no like relationship, and if there's no vehicle to foster that relationship, it's hard to impart that wisdom, right? Because if it's just like, watch me and I'll show you everything that you need to know, but you have no personal connection, I don't think it works as well. And so when we talk about like a father being absent, I think the way to get to our sons is to love them, hug them, tell them that we love them, have some kind of personal relationship with them. And that has been kind of like baseball for my oldest son. You talked about, they ask you to do this or to do that. And I have the same habits that you do, but when he asks, like, let's go throw the baseball, I'm like, dude, it's like the 5th time today.
Right.
But I try to do it. And in that moment, it's a mundane task of throwing a baseball, but in that moment, he's got your attention, you have his attention, and you can then talk about
Right.
certain things.
St. John Bosco says, one of his big quotes, he works with all these young men at all boys schools in Italy, of sort of the poorest of the poor, a lot of kids with no positive role models, male role models in their life, whatever. And he's one of his famous lines is, in order for a child to in order to love a child, it's not enough just to love a child. The child must know that he is loved, right? And that is, I think, hitting the nail on the head. I have found actually that my son, who, once again, he's in 7th grade now, he can be frustrated, and he can be difficult, he can push back on, we homeschool most of the time, we're in a hybrid school kind of system, so he's only in school 2 days a week, pushes back on things, doesn't want to do things. At the household, with everything going on, when he's one of lots of my children that I'm trying to manage and everything, he can be difficult. But when it's me and him, we do a lot of hunting together, right? Sure. And so sitting in a deer blind or chasing turkeys through the woods or whatever, he is the happiest. It's so great. We talk about all the stuff. We dig into all the things at that time. And I wanted to bring that up actually because one of the things that I found from talking to a lot of young men who will sort of have some serious father wounds. One of the really common ones is, why didn't my dad ever talk to me about X, Y, and Z? Be it sexuality, be it pornography, be it more sort of general moral things, right? Why was he too uncomfortable to talk to me about this? And now this has become a problem or a habit or something that I've been struggling with for years and years and years and years.
Sure.
And I think that as fathers, that's something we absolutely have to make sure we're not shying away from, is having the really hard, uncomfortable conversations with your son. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to, and it's probably going to be some stranger on the internet or a video on the internet or a kid in the locker room, and it's not going to be in line with truth.
And I would say that in that, admitting where you have failed along the way and the lessons that you have learned is that, our children, particularly our boys, almost look at us as like this infallible creature, right?
Right.
And we have to humble ourselves and have to be like, look, man, like, I totally screwed this up, and I don't want to see you make those same mistakes. And so kind of leveling with them to a certain extent. So it's interesting you brought up hunting. I'm a hunter, and so my son and I have spent a lot of time in the woods together.
Yep.
And so, and it goes to that, like that vehicle of that thing that you can do together that offers you the opportunity to. I have a terrible tendency of being extremely heavy-handed with my oldest son, and I don't mean physically, but just like I'm always after him about cleaning his room, staying organized, knowing where things are, putting my tools back, all of those kinds of things that I have to kind of make up for those things by reaffirming him and telling him that I love him and holding him close, and I'm not the best at doing that.
All right, so this is something I've thrown out 10,000 times on the show, but I got to make another pitch for it right now. Everybody, every father in particular who's listening, if you don't already do it, bless your kids every single night. Like, that is something that, once again, I'm ready for bed. I don't want to go up there and spend 10 minutes, 2 minutes piece on 5 kids, right? But that was something that I was told by a guy who has a bunch of kids. They're all grown, they're all faithful, they're all solid, they've got families, they're killing it, right? And I said, give me one good piece. I had his ear at a barbecue for a little while. And he said, bless your kids every night. And I said, what does that mean? And he sort of walked me through his formula. And every single night, I go upstairs and I make a sign of the cross on my kid's head, and I say, I say to my son, you're a prince of heaven, you're a son of God, you are good and virtuous and tough, and you are called to be a man and to affirm your dignity and that of other people. Take care of people who are weaker than you. I just want to give this laundry list of affirmations and then sort of expectations, and not like I expect you to do this, but you can do this. This is what you were called to do, and you can do it. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm on your team. Take care of your mother. Take care of your sister. I give this whole litany. And I swear it's the best thing in the world. Because on those days when, like today, I haven't seen my kid awake today. I told my kids goodbye this morning, kissed them on the cheek while they were asleep. I left. I'm going to talk to my kids for collectively about 15 minutes today. But that's going to be 10 minutes of it is going to each one of them and doing that. And so it's that little love deposit every day, no matter what else happened that day, you get that little love deposit at the end. Because eventually, I'm going to have to make some love withdrawals occasionally when he leaves my chainsaw out in the rain or something like that. And it's a big deal. But he needs to know that at the end of the day, I got his back.
Well, it's funny that you bring up the withdrawal thing. So I had a conversation with my oldest son the other day, and it was along that same lines about the family and the family being a piggy bank, right? So he's a bit scattered and a bit messy and so on and so forth.
Like boys are.
Yeah. And, he's in that phase where he wants to argue about the validity of chores and the necessity to do them and so on and so forth. And so I, thanks be to God, it just came upon me of like a piggy bank, right? And so I kept saying, like, you want to ask mom and dad to take you to do this or take you to baseball practice or buy you that new baseball glove or so on and so forth, or simply just feed you, right? And so you're always withdrawing. And it's like, what are you putting in? Like, what are you contributing to the family? Like, we have the blessing of having a swimming pool at home. And so I've kind of bestowed upon him now in the wintertime when the wind's blowing and the leaves are falling off, like, your job is to go get all the leaves out of the swimming pool. And now that it's cold and all, he's like hating it. And so, I have 2 comments, especially for boys. Stop making life easy on them. My son will raise 9 kinds of cane and try to, like, get us to break. Like, okay, you don't have to do it. And in my laziness, there have been times where I'm like, look, forget it. Like, I'll just take care of it. Like, I don't want to listen to you anymore. And recently, he was struggling with the swimming pool, and he was just giving it all he had. and he was losing the battle.
Right.
And I was torn in this moment of like, do I go down and help him just so that he can get it done, or do I just let him fight through it? And so, the pool net got thrown across the pool a couple times, and there might have been some screams and some squelches, but I just let him fight it out.
Right.
And ultimately he figured it out. And so afterwards I was like, so are you proud of yourself for sticking it out and getting it done? And he's like, yeah, I am. And I just like, well, I'm proud of you too.
Yeah.
I knew that it took some fight, and I knew that it took some time to get there. But I think we have a tendency, especially in modern culture, to just like make things easy or give up too easy.
Well,
or
and like you said, though,
concede.
I think a lot of times it's selfishness because
Oh,
I don't
100%.
want to deal with it.
I don't want to listen
so
to
I'll
you.
just go do the thing,
Uh-huh.
and so I don't have to hear it.
Yeah. The other thing is that he wants to like argue, right? Back and forth about the validity of something. And so I've started, and I actually did it today, where we asked him to go get something from downstairs, and he was like, oh, I've been downstairs. And I was like, you know what? I'll just go get it. Well, he immediately goes on like his own mental guilt trip of like, no, I'm sorry. I'll go. And I'm like, no, next time when I ask you to do something, you'll have a chance to do it. Right now, you prove me that you don't want to listen to what I ask, or you don't want to help. So I'll go take care of it.
I asked
And
one
so
of
he
his
has a
sisters to
huge
do
conscience.
it, and then it's this like, oh no, I can do it better.
Yeah.
She wouldn't do a good job. She doesn't know where whatever is. Like she knows where the socket wrenches are, buddy. I can just send her down there to get them if you want her to go get them.
It's like that cyclical cycle. It's like if we learn to admit our own mistakes and our own faults and learn from them, and our boys see that, they're going to start. And you guys are definitely proving you're already answering my question before I even say. It's like your boys are already seeing like they're learning their own processes, and they're learning to fight a fight that eventually will build upon it. They will build more confidence, more
I hope so.
just a lot more resilience, a lot more discipline. Because a lot of it, all I see when I'm with middle schoolers is I see a lot of lack of discipline, a lot of arguing and fighting for the validity of why the heck are we even doing this, or they're just sometimes falling asleep during a talk. It's like, okay, I've told you multiple times, I'm not perfect. I've done that before. I've been where you are. But I admit that I did it. But I'm trying to teach you differently. And then I've also been there. Even though I don't have boys, the boys that I've been working with, I asked myself the exact same question you did. It's like, do I let him fight it, or do I just tell him, no, go sit down and go listen? Because I'm not going to tell you again. Whereas they will learn the consequences later on at some point.
Well, in a similar vein too, and looping back in a little bit with what Nick was saying, apologizing to your kids is a big
100%.
deal. It's a big deal.
Big deal.
I don't know who lied to dad at some point and said you're not supposed to ever apologize. It's all the time. I'm saying, hey, that was an overreaction. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I should have done that. And then I won't let my kids say it's okay. I was like, no, it's not okay. That's why I'm apologizing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm asking for forgiveness. Will you please forgive me? And that's cool because it makes them much better at apologizing too, because they see, especially boys, need to know that that's an option. That being a man is not being this sort of stoic, I do nothing wrong, I just charge forward all the time. But that's tough. Once again, that's another muscle you have to work out. I was not good at apologizing to anybody when I got married, and I'm pretty good now.
That actually sounds like you're using something more Christ-like, and like Christ himself was giving of his word and of his body to not only his bride but to his children, and then you going out of your way to say you're sorry to your child who's looking up to you. That's I think you're showing a sign of humility and a sign of like, I'm willing to learn from this mistake so I don't do it again with my other children.
Dude, humility is like the word of the day, I think, in
yeah.
regards to.
I think another thing, and I think what was mentioned before, is like talking versus action, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm the world's worst about like the backseat threats. If you don't this, you're going to be punished. If you don't that, this is going to happen, so on and so forth. And like, I'm doing my best to stop doing that and just immediately go into, I'm picking you up and I'm removing you from
Sure.
this environment or this situation. And I'm going to go tuck you in the corner, or we're going to go in the back room and do whatever we need to do and stop like yapping threats, because kids will pick up of like, I'll get like 5 verbal threats before he becomes
Right.
physical, right? And so they like know how far to push that boundary.
I think that's something really important you touched on, because I feel like in my own parenting experiences, there was issues with punishment where that didn't really happen as often as it should. And
Sure.
not to say, oh, I suffered from that, I wasn't punished enough as a kid. But frankly, yes, I struggle with discipline, I think, because of that. authority that sometimes could waver. And like, oh, okay, 2 out of 3 times I'll get punished, but there's that 1 in 3. There's a
Right.
pretty good odds if you look at it like that. And because of that, that's very cool. And I also love something you touched on earlier about. Well, I lost it, but I thought it was pretty good, and I could relate to
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, actually, here's one question. How do you know because this is what I've experienced with the boys that I work with, and Julian, you've seen this before, is like, how do you know how far to push your discipline before you actually just start removing it? I know you touched on it, but it's like, how do you know if it's a new experience and you don't know and you don't know what is going on? How do you know it's like, no, right now we're instilling discipline and we're instilling punishment over instilling peace and instilling like a
A lesson.
conversation.
I think you draw the distinction between, are you punishing out of anger versus punishing out of some element of like goal at the end, right? And
Yeah.
so my wife is actually really good about reminding me of like, you're really angry right now.
Take a minute.
Why don't we take a step back and maybe address this in a little bit?
I've grown a lot in that realm in the last 12 years. And I had a spiritual director who said that to me. He said, there's a book I'll recommend to everybody called Boundaries. It's very good. And it gets into a lot of this stuff. And one of the big things, and it's kind of classic parenting, whatever, but is don't react when you're angry. You can remove him. You can say, hey, go to your room. I'm going to come up and talk to you in a minute. And then I don't know what you do. You can go punch a pillow if you need to, yell into a pillow. You can go, I'm a pacer. I'll go pace back and forth in the bedroom for a few minutes and then calm down and then come back. And sometimes the punishment is still, and I think I can say this on air, this will probably still be legal. Like I spanked my son growing up. He's getting kind of big for it now, right? But sometimes that's still what it is, but it's not done in anger. And it's done in a way that immediately afterwards you can say, all right, that happened. That was a consequence, and here's what it was a consequence for. And I hated that. Whatever the punishment is, if it's you can't go to basketball practice, that's like my go-to now. That's like the big one is you're missing basketball practice. He hasn't done anything bad enough to miss a game, but like, and here's why I did. I think explaining it and not doing it in anger is, but that's different with fathers versus guys that you're working with, right? Because once again, we have, as fathers, have a whole lot more opportunities for those love deposits than you do. And obviously, a father loves his son more than I love one of my students in my class or something like that, or on a different level for sure.
I guess I mean, like, talking from the perspective of just like still being that father figure that a lot of these boys crave is like maybe I probably just
Sorry, move closer to
Actually,
the
yeah,
microphone. That's what, yeah.
actually yeah, but that gave me a chance to think about my thought again. Like I've taken the time to like maybe step back a couple of them. I've actually taken one of them into a chapel and teach them about just like why are you acting this way, and that brought about a good conversation that I think you really needed, and that probably I saw something coming. It's like this is totally new for me. I have no experience in dealing with this kind of situation that I have to take you into the chapel so we can pray together. Whereas it's just I'm seeing you guys, you're like, oh, you're going through the line. You're just like, oh, I want to steal a cookie. It's like, yeah, no. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, no, get out of here. You already took a cookie. Let the girls have a cookie. It's like there's a distinction there.
I know for me, a lot of discipline has been trial and error, and if I can catch things in the moment, that is the best thing, especially with arguing. And you guys will find this as they continue to get older. For those who have boys, what I do in real time is if I need to shut down arguing, I say, "All right, you're going to stop arguing now," and then of course they continue. I say, "All right, you're going to stand in the corner for a minute," and if he continues, 2 minutes. I don't push at all. I don't raise my voice. 3 minutes, and then eventually it's like it hits that point of, oh, I'm not gonna, and I stick to whatever time he gets to, so I let him pick his punishment essentially.
Oh wow!
And it works really well, and it's like sometimes like, all right, 2 minutes in the corner, and then it stops.
That's essentially the most diplomatic thing I've heard for punishment, because we always call it the timeout corner, and that it's essentially the same thing that you said. It's like, but in our case, it was just like every year the time doubles. So if like you're 2, you're staying there for like 4 minutes, but if you're like, say,
Yeah, 10 is 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I actually I have a timeout quarter in my room at school in my classroom. I do all the little kid punishments. They were great with high schoolers because it's like kind of funny.
It's humiliating.
But at the same
Very
time, they're like, "This really
humiliating.
sucks." After a few minutes, sorry, this really stinks. Can I say? Can't. And it worked. You had a question, Pierce, off air earlier. I'd love to get into.
Sure. And then real quick, I think it's great that what I hear from this is there's a beauty in communication that's calm, because you're asserting still your fatherhoodness, or your leadership as a person over kids, in a way where when I coached just like my dad did. I coached baseball for a bit, and one of the things that I realized was in being clear and direct, but not losing your anger, or not losing your temper rather, and becoming angry solidifies a point where I'm not mad at you, and we're not having this contest back and forth. I'm telling you something, and you're going to do it. Like you said, the time may extend because you're failing to comply. The punishment may extend, but they'll sense that you're not reacting out of anger, and they'll respect that. My question was,
Hang on, can I interject
Sure,
for
please,
just
yeah.
a second? I think before we change subjects, I think one of the things that I've had to learn as a parent is that one size does not fit all. And so I think you have to be aware that not every punishment or consequence type fits every child.
I was going to say every
Yeah.
kid, not
Yeah.
just every situation, but every
Yeah,
kid.
that's good.
Right, absolutely.
Temperament,
and you got to
everything.
know how to pivot.
Yeah. I think my question was, I'm a single guy, no kids right now, and I have the beauty of coming to the church this past year.
Praise
and
God, man. That's
it's
so
been
cool.
great. It's been
Yeah.
great. And with
Congratulations.
that, like,
Way to
I
go.
got the spiritual director, Father Bender, shout out, he's amazing. But I also have great assets at my disposal, 20s and 30s, a lot of men's groups, Bible studies. I'm a knight as well now. And so with that, one of the things I wanted to know is, it's the plight of all men is to lead lives of quiet inspiration, was the quote. What do you guys do as married folks and as fathers, where you're not only feeding every day and being the engine behind the train, but also getting fed? How is that in your lives? Because I want to know that for my future.
You have a better answer than I do, so can I give my bad answer first?
How do you know? I just have ESPN or
I
something?
feel like no, that's something that I've struggled with my whole life. We were talking off air about spiritual directors, and one big takeaway that I got from in spiritual direction one time was, dude, you lead a lot of retreats, you're involved in all this stuff, but you don't do anything for you. What's going on with that? And I mean, I've got a prayer routine, I've got all these things, but I struggle in a big way. I've been what I think has really mitigated a lot of the harm from not having sort of organized community in any variety is the fact that I'm spoiled in this sort of pre-existing community of the school I go to, and all my friends are my college friends who are good, solid Catholic guys. I got good guys in my life. And so there's sort of this baseline trying to live out the faith that permeates pretty much all aspects of my existence, and I'm spoiled in that. Most people are not in that situation. I work in an authentically Orthodox Catholic school and community. Pretty much everybody I hang out with is like that, but that is something that I really have to up my game on. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's super essential for guys, and I think I've been able to skate by without totally falling apart because my, I don't know, common cultural zeitgeist, whatever, has been baseline Orthodox Catholics trying and struggling towards salvation. My spiritual direction is huge, but I need to get more involved in things that actually feed me instead of trying to help feed other people.
I don't think that there's anything that's going to be more valuable than, I would say, just spending time in adoration. I wish that we had like a 24-hour adoration chapel around where I was. I think your question's probably more geared towards like kind of hobbies, or like how can you vent and like kind of get the weight of fatherhood and husbandry and all of that stuff kind of off your shoulders for a little while. I have the unique enjoyment from splitting firewood. And so we live on property and we have a lot of
That is
trees.
what's
and so,
up, man.
You mentioned like going in the bedroom and pacing before you punish your kid. I kind of have it in the back of my mind of like, I might go outside and split a little firewood and let off some steam. And so I like physical activities.
Dude, splitting
so-
firewood in particular really is. We just did a whole lot in preparation for this storm, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
like a
fun.
primal male.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Progress.
Yeah. Man, I think, early on in my marriage and in my children's youthhood, or my children are still little, but I spent a lot of focus and time on, like, me. I hunted a lot and had hobbies and have blown way too much money on fun. And I think we need to spend less time on that.
Yeah. And more time
on
with our
on
secondary
ourselves. And-
vocations, which
yeah,
are our kids. All
absolutely.
right, I don't mean to cut you off, but we are almost at time. I do want to throw out there in the last couple seconds here, right? If you are a single guy, right, like Pierce, please be discerning your vocation. We are all called to fatherhood. Some of us are called to fatherhood through children, some of us through the priesthood, but regardless, we're on the same team, man. Keep fighting, keep struggling. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been Honest to God, a production of The Quest, Atlanta's Catholic Radio. Producer Julian,
Signing off.
over and out.